Welcome back to Mindly. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of biases. We've got a packed video for you, so make sure to stick around as we explore 20 common biases and unravel the mysteries behind them. 1. Bias blind spot. The bias blind spot is the tendency for people to perceive themselves as less biased than other people. This is because it is easier to recognize cognitive bias in others than in ourselves. 2. Gambler's fallacy. Have you ever thought that if something happens more frequently than normal during a certain period, it will happen less frequently in the future? That's the gambler's fallacy at play. 3. Omission bias. Moving on to omission bias, the inclination to judge harmful actions as worse or less moral than equally harmful inactions. It's all about the sins of omission. 4. Proportionality bias. Also referred to as the conspiracy theory bias or intuitive proportionality bias, is a cognitive bias that leads people to believe that big events must have big causes. 5. Moral credential effect. Ever done something morally right and then felt like you've earned the right to do something a bit morally questionable? That's the moral credential effect, and it's more common than you might think. 6. Self-serving bias. It's all about attributing positive events to our character and blaming external factors for the negative ones. Classic human psychology, right? 7. Framing effect. The framing effect occurs when people react differently to something depending on whether it is presented as positive or negative. In other words, our decision is influenced by how the information is presented rather than what is being said. 8. Actor-observer bias. Have you ever noticed that when something goes wrong, we tend to blame external factors, but when it goes right, we credit ourselves? That's the actor-observer bias, and it's worth unpacking. 9. Picture superiority effect. The picture superiority effect refers to the phenomenon in which pictures and images are more likely to be remembered than our words. 10. Outcome bias. Outcome bias arises when a decision is based on the outcome of previous events, without regard to how the past events developed. 11. Mere exposure effect. The mere exposure effect describes our tendency to develop preferences for things simply because we are familiar with them. For this reason, it is also known as the familiarity principle. 12. Hard-easy effect. Also known as the discriminability effect or the difficulty effect, occurs when we incorrectly predict our ability to complete tasks depending on their level of difficulty. It suggests that we are overly confident in how successful we will be at hard tasks and underconfident about how successful we will be at easy ones. 13. Survivorship bias. Survivorship bias is a real eye-opener. Have you ever considered that we might be focusing too much on success stories and neglecting the valuable lessons from failures? 14. Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. Otherwise known as the frequency illusion. This cognitive bias occurs when something you've noticed or recently learned suddenly seems to appear everywhere. But is it really appearing more frequently, or is your brain just paying more attention to it? 15. Availability heuristics. Also known as availability bias, is a type of cognitive bias that helps us make fast, but sometimes incorrect, assessments. It involves relying on information that comes to mind quickly or is most available to us. 16. Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a type of cognitive bias in which people believe they are smarter and more capable than they are. Essentially, low-ability people do not possess the skills needed to recognize their own incompetence. 17. Halo effect. The halo effect is a type of cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character. 18. Pygmalion effect. Have you ever noticed that when someone has high expectations for you, you tend to perform better? That's the Pygmalion effect. 19. Decoy effect. The decoy effect describes how, when we are choosing between two alternatives, the addition of a third, less attractive option can influence our perception of the original two choices. 20. Selection bias. Last but not least, we have selection bias. This occurs when the sample used in a study is not representative of the whole population, leading to skewed results. And there you have it, folks, 20 common biases explained. I hope you found this journey into the world of biases as fascinating as I did. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments which bias surprised you the most.